And that's why representation matters. You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
I mean, you know, you don't know what it's like to be a female, Alex, right? I mean, so you
Nope.
don't know
I
what you
don't.
don't know, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
representation matters. It shapes our perspective. It shapes our influence, our decisions, our signals. It helps us to understand how to be good neighbors
Yeah.
if one of our neighbors are sitting at the table, if the person who's next to me doesn't necessarily look like me, because they bring a
Right.
different perspective, right, on
Yep.
everything that we do. Let me just leave you with this thought as we're talking about what's next, because visibility matters, right?
Right.
If you don't see me, then how do you know I exist?
This episode is brought to you by CSG. CSG's SaaS solutions optimize every step of the tolling journey, from billing and payments to customer engagement, helping agencies maximize revenue through smarter, more integrated experiences. Make more, save more, and do more. Visit csgi.com.
Welcome to another episode of Toll Talk Podcast, where transportation, infrastructure, leadership, and innovation come together to move our industry forward. We're your hosts, Kalie Jakovics.
And I'm Alex Fakeri.
And today's conversation is especially meaningful as we recognize and commemorate Juneteenth. Juneteenth marks June 19th, 1865, the day enslaved African Americans in Galveston, Texas finally learned they were free, more than 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation had been signed. It stands as both a celebration of freedom and a reminder that progress in this country has often come through perseverance, resilience, and the continued pursuit of equity and opportunity.
Yeah, and as we reflect on that day in history today, it's also important to recognize the leadership, representation, and creating of pathways for future generations. In transportation and infrastructure, the work we do is more about roads, bridges, tollways, and transit systems. But it's really also about connecting communities, expanding access, and creating economic opportunity and helping people move forward. That's why we're honored today to be welcoming an incredible roundtable of leaders who are making a lasting impact across tolling, transportation, engineering, and public service. These professionals are helping shape the future of the industry while also creating opportunities for others to lead, grow, and succeed.
Joining us today is Robin Bramwell Stewart, Deputy Director at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey.
Rosa Roundtree, National Operations Director at Atkins Realis.
Ron Fagan, Vice President at LJ Engineering.
And Cassandra Rouse, Executive Director of the Illinois Tollway.
Thank you all for taking the time to share your journeys, your perspectives, and your leadership with us today. And a shout out to George Christopher from Accenture, who helped put this great group of leaders together. It's great to have you all join Toll Talk. Welcome to the show. All right, we like to begin our show by learning a little bit more about our guests so our viewers can get to know you a little bit better. So give us a brief minute overview of, about your background and your career journey, how you got into tolling.
And let's say, Cassandra, you want to start us off? I'm looking in the lower
absolutely.
left-hand corner, so let's go there.
All right. So again, my name is Cassandra Rouse, and I lead the Illinois Tollway. And the Illinois Tollway is a system of 5 toll roads. We have 294 miles within northern Illinois. We have over 12 counties that we serve. And really, in the significance of that, especially in the context of our discussion this afternoon, is about really serving a large population that, has transportation needs and needs access. And so we have over 8.4 million residents that surround our 12 counties. And from a tolling perspective, we process over 2 billion toll transactions on an annual basis.
Wow.
And I think the question started off is how did I enter into tolling and or transportation? I've been with Illinois Tollway now for 14 years and in the leadership role for over 4 years. And I entered into the tollway actually in a compliance and audit related position. My background has been in audit compliance. I was an accounting major from Howard University. And through the years, worked with a number of leading accounting firms as well as other Fortune 500 organizations where I led internal audit teams. So 14 years ago, the tollway was looking for an internal audit leader. I came in, had the opportunity to learn many of the aspects of the Illinois Tollway from a process, compliance, um, internal control framework. Moved through a number of different leadership roles within the 14 years. And like I said, the last 4 years, I've been leading the organization.
Okay. And I just have to say, I just spent the weekend in Illinois, previous weekend in Downers Grove, and I was being born in Joliet. It was great to be back home and yes, drive some of the toll roads there, so out and about. So it was great.
Thank you. Thank you for being a user.
Absolutely. All right, let's go over to Robin.
So I'm Robin Bramwell Stewart, Deputy Director at the Port Authority, the Department of Tunnels, Bridges, and Terminals. We are responsible for all of the crossings between New York and New Jersey. The Port Authority actually oversees a number of lines of business. So in addition to surface transportation, we also have a mass transit system, the PATH system. We oversee airports, the seaports here, as well as the World Trade Center complex. So lots of different businesses here to get involved in if you're interested in transportation. But on the tunnels, bridges, and terminal side, the surface side, we have 4 bridges and 2 tunnels, which connect the states of New York and New Jersey. Last year, we did 121 million toll transactions. And we are also home to the busiest bridge in the U.S., the George Washington Bridge, which is part of our portfolio. I got started, like Cassandra, I'm a graduate of Howard University. Although I was not a business major. I came out as a political science major, went to law school, graduated from law school, and actually worked in government in the governor's office in New York, in the council's office. That was where I started my career as a policy analyst, doing all kinds of insurance policy, banking policy. So I did that for a number of years. And then I moved over to the Office of Employee Relations, and I spent some time there as one of the chief negotiators for one of the state's contracts. Moved from there to JP Morgan, where I did municipal finance. And so all of those things sort of fit nicely into my next step, which was back into government, when I joined the Port Authority. And I started out here doing strategic and business planning, worked in the port department for a short while, ran our capital plan for about 4 years, and then moved over to tolling. So I have had a number of different steps that I've taken. I like to say they are all building blocks for one another. And I've been running the tolling program for the last 5 years.
That's fantastic. And I have to also give you some love because I go up to New Jersey to catch the cruise port and go out to my favorite cruise line, Royal Caribbean, and go out of there a lot. So
that is also our facility. So thank
there you go. A very well run facility at that. Let me tell you that.
Seems to be a lot. That's great.
All right. Ron, you want to go ahead next?
Sure. Ron Fagan. I'm in Austin, Texas. This is hard to say, but I've been in this industry 29 years.
Okay.
I can recall going to my first IBTTA and asking, who are all of these old people? I am now part of old people. So I transitioned from the military, the Army, and ended up through networking, getting an opportunity with what was then the Orlando Orange County Expressway Authority as the Deputy Director of Operations. Ironically, Rosa and I were at the same small college at the same time, and we were at the same agency at the same time. So through that, I did about 8 years in Orlando, and then had an opportunity to come to Austin with a new agency, Central Texas Regional Mobility Authority, to be the Director of Operations. And rightly or wrongly, in 2011, I decided to go out on my own and start a consulting practice. Fortunately for me, Bill Brownsberger, Steve Doolin decided to join as partners in 2014, and we grew it to an entity of over 30 systems consultants. I mentioned earlier we were acquired last summer by LJA. LJA is a full spectrum engineering firm located in or headquartered in Houston, Texas. They have 80 offices across the country. So we have transitioned our folks, and we are part of their transportation group. and just continue to try and grow and enjoy being a part of the changes that have taken place in this industry. Thanks.
Okay, now, so I've got another one. I'm
He
three
just
for three.
keeps
This
going.
is going really well. Okay, so Ron, Army guy. All right, much love, but I'm Navy, but still, thanks for your service. You know, it's good, you know, we feel bad
Fight.
for you. It's okay. No, no, but no, thanks for your service, and you know, definitely love Texas. Other than that, it's great. All right, Rosa, how about you?
Okay, rounding up the group here. So, listening to everyone, my name is Rosa Roundtree, and I'm with Atkins Realis. And of course, Atkins Realis is an engineering firm, and we support clients across the nation and across the globe. We are, in that case, for tolling, specialize in all things tolling. I look at tolling similar to any DOT. We build and operate transportation infrastructure. But how I started was like many others. We stumbled into this business, right? Tolling isn't something I went to school for, but like Cassandra, I too am an accountant. My degree is in accounting, where I went to school, as Ron shared, at University of West Florida. So kudos to my colleagues out there who graduated from the University of West Florida. It is located in Pensacola, Florida. So maybe you've
Ooh.
got some points there. Pensacola, Florida. Beach. It's the beach area. And so I grew up there with my siblings. I'm one of seven, so a very large family. And I started in tolling after my husband retired from the military. So
Okay,
something in common
there
there,
we
right?
go. Yep.
Something in common there. So my husband retired from the military. He was Army, and we retired to everyone's favorite place to vacation, Orlando, Florida. And I was hired as the operations manager, as Ron shared it at the time, Orlando Orange County Expressway Authority, currently Central Florida Expressway Authority, to be the operations manager. And that led off to me asking many questions. And like Ron, when I went to IBTTA, there was only myself that looked like me and two other women. And Mary Jane tells that story
Oh
often
yeah.
about the first time she saw me and how I was headed directly for her. I needed someone that looked like me, at least, that I could talk to, that made me feel comfortable. So that was part of my journey. I then left OOCEA to then go to the next side, the private sector side. So I went to Lockheed Martin, implemented probably about 75% of the tolling in the industry in the nation, because I went from project to project. I was always that senior project manager moving about. So I've implemented projects in New York, as far as New York and Florida, and as far out west as California. So I've done and touched probably about 30 some agencies tolling in the United States as
Wow.
my opportunity as a private sector person and as a consultant. I left Lockheed Martin at the time after 9/11. I was in DC when all of that occurred. And so I decided to come back and be a consultant. And at the time, I became a consultant for PBS&J, which is now Atkins Realis. And after being a consultant there for a few years, I then moved on to become one of the first executive director for a tolling authority for the State Road and Tollway Authority. So 2005, African American female, first and only tolling authority, in the nation. So out of 120 in 2005, being the first was
Wow.
an interesting
Yeah.
place
That's
to be at the
impressive.
time.
Yeah.
So no support, right? Not a lot of
Yeah, yeah.
support when you're the first. You're carving away. And I did that. And I mean, love to talk about that whole story, but
Oh yeah.
journey there and went to, again, back to the private sector side as Aegis hired me, and they are 3P, so they operate those 3P types of projects around the globe, probably one of the top five in the industry doing that. And of course, when they decided not to do that in the United States, I moved back to consultant. So I've kind of sat around the table, as an operator, as an integrator, as a 3P provider, financing, transportation, and now I'm back as a consultant again. So happy to be here, happy to be a part of the discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, I'm going to close out by simply saying,
What else is there?
yes, I did live in Florida, and I think your husband for his service as well. But I did not go. I'm not alumni with you guys, but I'm glad to hear that our guests have alumni amongst them today. So that's
Yeah.
really cool. But not just
And-
tolling
yeah.
alumni.
And
if
wow,
you will.
what a wealth of knowledge we have here and experience everyone has. I'm excited to hear more about, with you all in leadership roles. Has there been maybe mentors or anyone that has taken you under their wing in the beginning of your careers, or anything that is memorable that you'd like to share?
I'll just jump in right there. Mentorship, I found, especially in the role of transportation and in leadership roles, is really important. And it's also important when you're developing your career. And personally speaking, it was really a mentor that really helped me when I first came into the Illinois Tollway, being new into transportation. And within the first, few months of my time within the internal audit department, the leader at the time, the first female executive director, one of the statements that she made to me was, Cassandra, you need to learn all you can about transportation and tolling. And she was definitely that voice, while she was at the agency that moved me into spaces and became a sponsor in the sense of making sure that I was positioned in the conversation and invited my voice into the conversation. And that was very helpful, especially in the early years. I've also learned that, being a female leader in transportation, it really helped to reinforce the importance of really being confident, but then also making sure that you're leading with a spirit of collaboration. And those were some real key principles that have, really helped me throughout the time period that I've been within the tolling transportation space. But, even throughout my career, mentorship and sponsorship are definitely very key and something that, you need to incorporate into your pathway of developing within any organization. So,
Absolutely. I don't know what I would do without my mentor and others, and especially in transportation and tolling, and through IBTTA, it's all about getting people involved, uplifting them, and getting them involved in the sessions and growing. So that's
Yeah.
great to hear.
And I'm kind of curious. You're bringing something up, Cassandra. It makes me want to ask a question here to Robin specifically, and that is, when you think about leadership, right? Whether you're giving it or receiving it, I think there's that to nod to Cassandra, that moment when a mentor or somebody says, "Hey, wait, this is your spot's right here next to me. Here's your voice." There's probably I know for myself, that feeling like, oh, okay, this is my time to shine, or this is it. But there's probably some feeling. I mean, so Robin, maybe about you, and you had your first mentor or leader or somebody who like that who supported you. What was that feeling like for you? And have you been able to carry that on and pass it on?
Absolutely. When I first joined the governor's office, I was brought in by a gentleman who was counsel to the governor. And, I was a year and a half out of law school. And so was really very new in terms of everything. A new lawyer, new really to the workforce, had a couple of jobs like interning, but it was my first real leadership role. And I'll never forget, he said to us as we were, in his office the very first day, he was like, look, I've created this group. It's a small group. You're all very young, but you have to remember when you walk in any room, you represent the governor. So you need to understand what that means and what the import of that is. So things like,
Mm-hmm.
how to listen without giving an indication whether or not you agreed or disagreed, being open to hearing all sides of an issue, whether or not you necessarily agreed with what was being said in the room, but also being willing to learn. And I think the biggest thing that my mentor taught me was that it's not difficult to become an expert in something if you are willing to put the amount of work in that's necessary. And just being willing to sort of do the work to learn, to understand the issues, and then to move forward. And that's carried through my entire career. Most of the jobs that I've had, I've come into with not a lot of background. And I've really had to dig into and learn, and tolling was no different. I learned the industry from the ground up.
Yeah.
And I'd like to, I thank all of the people that are on this panel with me, because all of them helped me as I went through that process. But that's really the way that I got through everything, was just digging in and doing that hard work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yep.
and what I like about that is it's getting, you're saying you had to put that work in there, but again, nodding to your members on the panel, like where you come together. And I think, when we're talking about the topic of, Juneteenth, for example, one of the reasons we wanted to get together here is, reminds us of this opportunity of freedom. We have deep, this deep connected, history that we have to look at and say, in many ways, transportation and infrastructure, the relationships that you have here that brought you together and kind of, helped you there and give you that success. So, Rosa, maybe you could comment, for example, what it means, because not only just as a woman of color, but also a leader, as you look back and you think about jobs, education, and economic mobility and things like that, where do you how have you taken this opportunity to change and get awareness out there of, take leadership, here's the technologies, here's doing the job, what does it mean, all aspects of your role, taking this time to reflect on Juneteenth, what does it mean to you?
Thinking about Juneteenth, just that alone, it took 2 years before they actually got the word that it was free, right? That freedom
Right.
existed. So it says to me, just because we say we're inclusive, just because we say that we're part of, just because it's declared, doesn't mean that it's true. It still requires us to have commitment ongoing to realize our full potential, right? And so I say that, Alex, knowing that we say we're all equal, we say we all have the same opportunities, but do we? And so just because we say it doesn't mean it's true, right? So I start there, but knowing that if you just park that 2 years before they actually got that it was declared, everybody, it was
Right.
declared. And so if you just park that with saying, when we make statements like we're all equal, we're all about inclusiveness, right? When you say that, is it true? Just because we say it doesn't mean it's true. So what does that mean in regards to leadership, where we are and where we're going? We have to be intentional. And I've heard this word used on so many speaking opportunities. People say intentional. It's become the word, right? The word of the day
Yeah.
is intentional. And intentional can be similar to being, it was declared, right?
Right.
It was declared that we are free. Intentional without action, it's void, it's empty.
Right.
And so we have to do the next thing, pulling people up, right? Pulling people up. We're there because we continue to pull one up. We're there because leadership requires us, as Robin said, continue to lean on each other. And if someone leans on you, you're there to help them and support them in that need. It's making sure that we have these networking opportunities. You wouldn't know me if I wasn't a part of IBTTA. So what does that say?
Yeah.
That says we have to be present. Visibility matters, right?
Absolutely.
You have to see me for me to actually have that opportunity. So leadership means being a part of. I can't just be behind the scenes and not be a leader. I have to be a part of. So there's so much we can do. I mean, this alone can be a podcast by itself. But I
Yes.
think the big piece about Juneteenth is just remembering, just because we declare it doesn't make it so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I think about and reflect on what Rosa just stated, Juneteenth, really what it's reminding us is that freedom and opportunity are not just declared, they must be delivered. And
Yes.
in transportation, what that means is we have to connect all communities and connect communities really through an equity lens. And when I think about it from my seat as a leader of a tolling agency, we really have that responsibility to examine, how do our decisions, the decisions that we make daily, how they impact, access, how they impact affordability, and also to make sure that we are leading with intention so that mobility really becomes a bridge and not a barrier for all the communities that we served. I kind of highlighted, at the beginning of this discussion, just the vast, number of communities that we serve from an Illinois Tollway perspective. And so it is so key that as we are making decisions about policies, about investment, that we are really noting that equity is in infrastructure, and it really is those policies and shaping of those policies that really drives how we deliver. And having that equity lens is very, very important in transportation.
Well said.
And if I
Absolutely.
may add,
Oh,
Alex,
Yeah.
she's doing that. As an
yeah.
executive, she's actually doing that. So if you
I
haven't
love
been
that.
following her, follow her and see some of the things she's doing because she's one of my sheroes.
There you
Yeah,
go.
our sheroes
I
love
love
that.
that.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Now a message from our sponsor.
The business of tolling is complex. Trusted by the world's most respected brands, CSG transforms every customer interaction, communications, billing, payments, and more into a smarter, more profitable outcome. Make more, save more, do more. CSG, solving tolling's toughest challenges simply.
Ron, what does Juneteenth mean to you as a leader?
Well, it's important to understand history. I can't
Absolutely.
speak for others, but I'm old enough to say that my great grandmother was born into slavery. So I had grandparents that knew what that was all about. My parents graduated from Tuskegee in 1951. So it is that history of understanding not that just the event occurred, but the strides people had to make and continue to have to make to be considered equal, to be considered capable, to be considered competent. Uh, it is imperative, I think, that who sits at the decision tables matters.
Yeah.
What decisions get made depends on who is sitting there. And so I have seen over the last almost 30 years a very significant change in leadership. I mean, you're looking at three ladies right here. My first IBTTA, like Rosa, it was Mary Jane O'Meara and me, and that was it.
Yeah.
So to say now that we have had African Americans on the board, we have had women leading organizations. It is important, A, that people see that and understand where it came from. Juneteenth was maybe a catalyst for the opportunity, but we can never lose sight of the fact that it can be taken away, it can be overlooked, it can be passed on. So the onus as leaders are on us, to use Rosa's word, be intentional. Look behind you. Who is capable? Who should be encouraged? Who should have the opportunity? And maybe they don't even see it for themselves. It is critical to see it in them and be able to point that out. So Juneteenth was the opportunity. The onus is on us to continue that even to this day in 2026 and beyond.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I knew you were going to say that, but I want to just say something real quick because Rosa excited me, and then Ron took it to another level because you said, what I loved about was the action, right? Because words are just words, right? And we appreciate words, but actions mean everything. But Ron, like you said, the catalyst, and that really, for me, frames this up as that was a catalyst. But now it's up to us, everybody, to be taking action continually to provide the next generation of youth to know there are options to, no matter what they're doing, professional or whatnot. But it's the action that needs to continue to happen. Otherwise, it all gets stale.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, what work still needs to be done continuously? Would love to hear your
that
thoughts.
That could be a podcast.
Yeah,
That's a long...
I know that. There's a lot. I know there's certain programs and things, but from your perspectives, what do you think for equitable opportunity?
Well, I'll start on that one with
Sure.
It happens, in the workplace, we are integrated. But the vast majority of people that go home in their social circles are not integrated. I think it was Martin Luther King or somebody said Sunday morning at 11 o'clock is probably the most segregated hour in the country.
Yeah.
It is one thing to be able to say we have a diverse team. It is another to understand, to be intentional about trying to bring people in, putting people in positions so that you hear opinions, decisions, life experiences beyond what you had.
Exactly.
If everybody in the room looks the same, you get the same idea about decisions. It's when you bring diversity into the room, when you bring women in, when you bring in men, people of color, folks that may not look like you, think like you, but have ideas. That is when change takes place. That is when advancement can take place. Otherwise, you are stifling what we've always done. It's the same old people doing the same old thing. And I think us looking at this industry, we know things would not have evolved and moved forward had that mindset been what was taking place the entire time.
Mm-hmm. One other thing that I think is really important for us as folks who are involved in surface transportation is to always remember the history about how some of our facilities, some of our roadways came to be. They were at the expense of marginalized communities.
Mm-hmm.
You know, property was taken, people were moved out, neighborhoods were cleaved in half, and those things have had ongoing impacts and continue to have impacts to this day. So one of the things that I'm very conscious and aware of is not just my responsibility for, you know, diversity within and equity within the organization,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also, are we showing up as a good neighbor in those communities? What are we doing to deal with the folks that are next to our facilities that may be burdened by them in small and large ways? And how are we treating them? And that, I think, sometimes gets lost in the discussion. Again, it's one of those things, you know, I think we exist in a world now where we want to gloss over a lot of those histories where they make people uncomfortable or they're unhappy about them. But it really is important for us as leaders in this industry to say, you know, we cannot leave the communities that our facilities sit in behind.
Yeah.
And that's why representation matters. You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
I mean, you know, you don't know what it's like to be a female, Alex, right? I mean, so
Nope.
you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
So representation matters. It shapes our perspective. It shapes our influence, our decisions, our signals. It helps us to understand how to be good neighbors.
Yeah.
If one of our neighbors are sitting at the table, if the person who's next to me doesn't necessarily look like me, because they bring a
Right.
different perspective, right? On everything that we do. Let me just leave you with this thought as we're talking about what's next, because visibility matters, right? If you don't see me, then how do you know I exist? Right? And that's part of what I will say is that when I started and I was the executive director of CERTA, there was one, just one. Today, you know, that was 2005. And now it's 2026. And the executive directors that we have, to my knowledge, is 3. Out of 120 tolling authorities, over 120 tolling authority, there's 3. Only 3.
Wow.
So we still have a ways to go, right? So it's an honor to be in those roles, but yet we don't have the seats at the table. And again, I'll leave with representation matters for so many reasons. If we really want to improve mobility and the opportunity for others to keep moving forward.
You know, Rose, I want to comment on one thing that you said and about visibility and being there, and then I want to go into a question. But I have as a story. I have a colleague of mine who was very successful. She owned a number of McDonald's restaurants, and you know, you go into the restaurant and you could have mistaken her for the janitor. You wouldn't know her from a hole in the ground, right? She was just a hardworking beast of a woman, and she's a good friend of mine. She started as a client, been a friend for years now. And I remember one day I was visiting her location, just saying, "Hey, Karen, how's it going?" We're having a good chat. And this gentleman walks in. I'm not going to besmirch their name, their company, or anything like that, because it's just an instance in time. And the guy walks up and turns to her and says, "Can I speak to your manager?" And she, you know, just said, "Oh, you know, I'm the manager. I can take care of it for you." And he goes, "Well, can I speak to your husband?" And he's like, "No, I'm the owner. I'm the person." And then he said, he goes, "Well, when will your husband be around?" I'm like, my mind is blown, because I'm like, the arrogance, the ignorance of it. And I will tell you honestly, it was the first time I'd really seen it like that. I've heard of it, and I have many women leaders in my organization, and I mean, I don't hear it, I don't see it. But if they have a complaint, I listen to it. But to see it taking place in front of me in an environment, I'm like, what in the heck? Like, I mean, that's bizarre. But I think that is, if I didn't have the visibility, or if there wasn't a conversation, I guess is the reason I'm bringing this topic up, is I would still be ignorant to it, even though my intentions may have been good, but not to really be aware of what was really transpiring. And so I love what you said there, Rosa, about, that, you've got to be the visibility there. But it brings me to, speaking of visibility for you, I want you to, if you wouldn't mind continuing, and then we'll pass the mic around. But what progress have you witnessed as, for Black professionals in the industry where there's been noticeable progress, or what have you seen, or maybe even not progress, or where there's an opportunity?
Always opportunity, right? We never stop for opportunity. But just looking at IBTTA alone, Ron and I both shared, love Mary Jane. Kudos and shout outs to Mary Jane, always and forever. But again, when I went, 3 women, right, at the IBTTA conference, and now there are 2, you start and there's so many, I can't count them on my 2 hands, right? So there's progress, right? There is definitely progress. We have women in tolling at IBTTA.
Yeah.
Who knew? Women in tolling. So there's progress. We have young people, professionals. Who knew, right? So we are progressing. People are raising their hands and taking the commitment, because that's the one piece. Opportunities can be there, but we need people to stand up and take that commitment. There's always that group that says, sign me up, right? I'll do it. And we're going to continue, and always will need those people who say, sign me up. So progress, we've seen young, we've seen women, we have used to be DEI, but now I think it's OOE. Correct me if I'm wrong on that for IBTTA. Names matters for many reasons, but we're seeing that in that open and safe space conversation that you just talked about. You were part of something, that you witnessed it, and maybe had you not witnessed that, have been visible for that, to see that, you probably never would have understood what it's like for someone to come in and ask for the manager.
Yeah.
You say you're the manager, and then they ask for the husband. I mean, it makes our mouths drop, right, to hear that. But think about it when you're in the room and they don't say anything, that you're there. I've heard women say to me that when they attend IBTTA, right, that no one talks to them. They're alone, right? They eat, they go to meetings, and then they eat by themselves, and they go to their rooms by themselves, right? So still things needed. Maybe ambassadors. Maybe we should all consider ourselves ambassadors.
Yeah, there you go.
That's a great idea.
That when we see new people, no matter man, woman, young, old, whatever it is, it's being new to an organization. So maybe we should consider ourselves ambassadors. Yeah. So when someone raises their hand and say, I'm new, we take the challenge and say, I'm willing to commit to helping you. So progress, yes.
Yes.
Again, I see it. Opportunity, yes. Right. Maybe that ambassador program is where we want to move to. But until we as individuals are willing to take the challenge and say, yes, include me, I'm willing to lead, opportunities will always be there. So
okay. Cassandra, could you maybe answer the same question? What progress have you seen for Black professionals, whether in tolling and transportation, or if you have another area or sector?
Mm-hmm. Yes, just to kind of pick up on something that was also stated, and that was history. I think the reminding those of us that are already in the room from a minority perspective, and others about the history of, and reminding us how we weren't always there is important, because then we're not taking that space that we're in for granted. And we know then how to pull and lift others into the space. I think, also just letting women and minorities and others know, look, you've got to stretch yourself, raise your hand for those opportunities that are there, to really, because I think that's where you become more committed and ingrained within the industry. And, you find, your place and your voice. So the reminder of, why it's important for you to be there is really critical, and just the journey that others have taken basically to open up those doors, and letting them know that, look, you've got to be persistent for change to happen, and for you to find your footing that really ingrains you within the industry. And I go back to even how I first started in the transportation space. It's having others challenge you and say, hey, come in, lift them and pull them forward. And, I can't, leave the question without stating the importance of making sure that our youth also know about transportation. I don't think there's anybody in this, on this panel or even in the industry who said, I'm majoring in transportation. I know when I was coming
I
through
don't think
college,
anyone.
it just wasn't there.
No one
But
has
when
ever.
right. But when you talk about really what transportation does and how important it is to life, I think you form a connection such that people then become excited about having the very number of roles that are within that industry. And again, they're able to find their footing, their voice, and again, have that opportunity to lift others into the space.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
last point I'll make there, just because one is in the room doesn't mean that there's less opportunity, right? There should be more opportunity. Sometimes we check the box. Have you seen them when they say they go through the list? We have one of these, one of those, one of these, right? Like a grocery list, right?
Yeah.
Well, one is not enough,
Yeah.
right? And so let's not make a list where we check it off and say, okay, we have that. And so we
Yeah.
don't need to do that anymore. We need to be open-minded about
Yeah.
representation matters, and it adds to our success.
Yeah, and I feel like it's a great time, great space for people to say, hey, I have an idea. Hey, I want to get involved. And as we be ambassadors, right, and just help people and leaders grow, young professionals even. I love that you said that. Ron, what responsibility do you think leaders have for opening doors for others today?
Yeah, you just said something that makes sense to me. As a leader, first and foremost, you set the culture. You establish a work environment where mistakes are not hanging offenses. People are allowed to speak up. They have an idea, they can express it. It is when people feel stifled, they feel threatened, they don't think you want to hear what they have to say. That is when you miss golden opportunities from people that have a different perspective. So the first thing is making sure people understand, hey, you can make a mistake. Stretch it, as Cassandra said, stretch a little. See how it goes. Just don't repeat that mistake. The second thing is to be intentionally encouraging, even for the shy ones. I know one or two, particularly in the company. We hired them. They were brilliant electrical engineers, but kind of hanging back. Well, no, I'm going to grab you and push you out front. We'll support you, but please understand, it is not, and I didn't hire you because you have this big brain and sit in the back. I hired you because I see a great deal of potential in you, and I want you to fulfill that. The fact that you happen to be a person of color means nothing to me. It means we need what you have to offer. We need you to learn. So I'll wrap that up with any leader worth their salt is looking for the next generation. They are looking for the transition. Absolutely. Who will take this over when I'm gone? Because certainly when you walk out the door, they'll change the nameplate and the org chart will change, but is the organization still growing? Is it moving forward? Did you leave a legacy of folks that will carry on the mission that you had in mind?
Yeah, absolutely.
Robin, do you want to add to that at all?
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing that all of us can do going forward is to really be the people that are that are encouraging those young people and saying, take a risk, take a chance, take an opportunity. It's been said several times, no one sees themselves in transportation or in tolling. How you get here is by happenstance, but it's also by people recognizing, hey, this might be a good fit for you. This might be a place where you can actually add value. And I know we spend a lot of time here with our younger staff trying to encourage them to get out, to take ownership of the things that they're working on, to become expert at it, to, feel, I said to them, I want them to come to me with the answers, not with the questions. Okay. And, so long as we're empowering people and we're giving them opportunities to do that, I think that the industry will continue to grow and it's going to continue to flourish.
Yeah, speaking of empowerment, this whole conversation, I'm like getting excited.
And I have a question too. So you go ahead, leave room for me.
I was going to say also, we have just a couple minutes left. So we have a few more questions for you all. But with that, Alex, I'll let you jump in if you had something.
Thank you very much. She's a great co-host. All right. So this is a question just kind of came to me. So I'm asking you completely off the fly here. As a leader, specifically, Okay. Do you, in this, and I'm kind of curious, like, do you feel that is not only people of color with history, a woman, do you feel that you have to the way that you set the example of excellence? Do you feel like that's an added pressure that you have to always keep in the back of your mind? Or is that an area that you feel like it still needs to be demonstrated in action? Or do you think that's, we've evolved past there? But I have a feeling that Rosa would say it's always action, like, so you have to continue. But I'll let you guys comment if that question came out right.
You have my answer, so I'll let others go on.
Take it
From
away,
my
everybody.
from my perspective, there's no pressure. You know, a leader, you lead by example, you show up, you do the work, you put in the hard work. And if you are caring about the people that are beneath you, people will follow you.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that. So I don't think of, the fact that I'm a woman, that I'm a person of color, that I'm in an industry, that I came into an industry later on, are as things that are challenges. They just
Right.
are. It's just part of the environment that I'm operating in.
Beautiful.
I'll second that. I used to like to say when we had the company and I was a managing partner, every single person in that company was smarter than me. You're talking IT, system science, electrical engineers. I could do none of that math, and I don't even speak the same language. So I'm amazed with these accounting people. But what people in the company understood is that we cared. We cared how you were doing. We cared about your career advancement. We had people that wanted to go join the Air National Guard, thought they'd have to lose their job. No, you want to go and contribute to your community, you go do that. We will support you. We had people that had accidents that probably should have died, and she thought for sure, we're not going to be around when you get back. She is still with us today. So people need to know, first of all, you care. Competent, yes, but do you care about them? Because if you will go to bat for them in life-altering situations, if you will go to bat for them when it's time for promotion or that project management position they've been looking for, then they know you have their back. Those folks will do just about anything. It's the old adage, they'll run through a door. If you will treat them right, if you will always put them first. And I'll leave it with, it comes from the military for me. Back in the day, the Army motto used to be mission first, people always. You got to get the job done, but it means nothing if you don't bring the people with you. So it is always about the people. It will always be who's growing, who's going. And if you decide to do anything from a selfish perspective, people see that right away and you lose them. So it is about the people, taking care of the people and advancing the people, my opinion.
So agreed, Ron. I was thinking, how many companies always say people are our number one assets? And then you look at what they're doing. They're working their people more than 40 hours or working on weekends and nights and holidays. It's like, are they really your number one asset?
Yeah.
And maybe there's some positive pieces there, but I got to tell you, I had the opportunity to run Aegis North America, which means I had people in Canada, I had people in Mexico, and I had people in the United States. And to Ron's point about people will run through a door for you if you ask them to, man, it's not stress. I'm passionate about what I do. I love this industry. I love about what I do. But our industry, it's about people.
Yeah.
I mean, we really do mobility. It's about people, helping them to move where they need to move to, get to where they need to get to. It really is about people. And I've seen it. I've seen people do things for me that I never would have asked them to do because they believed in me and my leadership. And so
Right.
the stories I could just go on and tell you about, first of all, being a leader, you truly want to be a good leader, people should be the first thing you consider. Because if you hire the right people, you're going to get the job done, right? So
That's the
Yes.
byproduct. Yeah, that's
So-
the byproduct of great leadership and relationships is the dedication, the extra, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Cassandra.
Definitely. I mean, and I agree with what everyone here on the panel has stated, and I would say that giving your team an opportunity to express their thoughts and/or opinions and/or opportunities to continue to move the agency or the organization in which you're representing is always key. empowering your people is something that leads to greatness, not only for just building the culture within your organization, but then in support of your mission and also delivering for, in this case, the members that, delivering for society from a
Yeah.
transportation perspective. I think that, it's important that when you have a shared vision, that others then are able to really lead and make decisions along, those pathways, because you as a leader can't possibly be everywhere.
Right.
So you need to be able to trust in your leadership team and be someone from a leadership perspective that listens. And through listening, you understand, where, what, excites your employee, your staff, so that you can then obviously find opportunities for them that allow them to continuously grow within the organization. And I think that's how you really move an organization forward fast, to be successful and deliver.
Yeah, absolutely. Listening, lifting them up, letting them go beyond what your capabilities, kind of around what you were saying before. It's like, they can do all of these things, and just keeping giving them that opportunity. So, final question for each of you is kind of a two-parter, but what excites you most about the future of the industry, and what legacy do you hope that your work leaves behind?
Oh, so from my perspective, I'll lead off.
Sure.
Take the lead.
Yes, I think for me, it's a couple of things. One, what really inspires me about the role that I have is really looking back, from a historical perspective, and I lean back on a story from, a real lived experience from my mother who grew up in public housing. And within that public housing environment within Chicago, they did not have access. Access was cut off at a particular time, which really impacted, how they looked for emergency services, how they, healthcare and all the critical things we know that transportation brings. Well, in that community, they didn't have it. And so knowing that I'm now within this transportation role and I'm able to make sure that access is really given and are provided across communities, that
Yeah.
mobility is there, that deserts from a food standpoint are no longer an issue, and continuing to make sure that others within, my space are not only learning from that experience that I've learned from my mom in regard to why transportation is important. And then spreading that over to, again, the youth, those that we need to be on a podcast like this many years from now, or a few years from now, even, and so that they see the importance of their
Yeah.
work. And so having the ability to have the chance to make changes within those critical areas that really provides, when you talk about legacy, creates legacy moments, but that are impactful and long lasting and carry forward.
Very passionate. I love it.
Robin?
So what excites me is I think there's going to be a huge jump in the next 10 to 15 years in terms of changes in technology. I was in Scottsdale last weekend. I came out of the airport and there's a row of Waymos there waiting to pick people up from the airport. We're doing a lot of stuff here with drone deliveries and with different kinds of people movers to the airports. So I think there's going to be huge growth in the industry, and I'm just really excited about that and excited to see how tolling continues to change and morph and grow to accommodate all of that change. In terms of legacy, I think, the biggest legacy that I'd like to leave behind is a workforce that does not feel like any problem that they come up against is insurmountable. We spend a lot of time here focusing on how to problem solve and how to approach a problem from the perspective that doesn't make it feel intractable and like it can never be resolved. And, there's a lot of gamification that I've done here in terms of working with my staff, but just to kind of get people thinking about how to be creative about approaching problems. And so I think that if we can continue to pass that down to people and continue to kind of move them toward really wanting to dig in and do that hard work and the problem solving, and hopefully to use technology as tools to help drive that forward, I'm really excited about where the industry can go.
That's great. Great. Ron, you want to talk about your...
Sure. a Louis Armstrong lyric crossed my brain. I see the babies, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know.
Yeah.
The smart young folks that I've dealt with are going to run circles around some of the things that we have done. They will help advance this technologically, as Robin said. But I see a lot of empathy in these young folks too. They actually care about themselves and one another. So I'm excited to see what they will do. Hopefully I'm reading something 10 years from now that says, hey, they're doing this thing in transportation, and I can actually identify a person or two that I had the opportunity to work with. That would be phenomenal. So I think we're in great shape. You know, the young professionals, the women in tolling, it just keeps evolving to more and more people getting involved, particularly those that, like us, knew nothing about tolling, and now they are helping advance the ball. I think that's tremendous. As far as legacy goes, my hope would be that I've carried myself professionally so that folks understand first and foremost is empathy. Yeah. You've got to be able to relate to the person next to you. You won't get it done by yourself, neither will they. Their idea may not exactly match yours, but can you at least agree we have found common goal, we have a common interest to advance this agency, this project, this item, so that we work together. I have tried to work that way, and I certainly hope, I've encouraged our team always to be collaborative, and I hope that is something that gets passed along from folks that had the opportunity to be anywhere near me.
That's great. Thank you. And Rosa, you want to finish us out with your comment on the years in your legacy and what you leave behind?
Well, I'd like to say what excites me. It's always and always will be people. You know, I know technology has advanced and will always be advancing, even if you talk about the toaster or the television or communications. So what excites me is that the people that get in our industry, and hopefully some of my passion rolls off on them. Because again, anyone who knows me knows I'm passionate about what we do in this industry and how it's growing. My legacy, I hope my legacy is about the people that I've helped along the way, that the people that I've touched and inspired, knowing that it's not about the titles or roles that I've held in the past, but about how I made people feel and how I've encouraged them to move on and to lift others up. Because it really is. Legacy is about what you leave behind. It's not the material things you leave behind. It's the intangible things that you leave behind, the things that inspire others to continue on the path that you've started. So
that's great. Yeah. That's great.
Well, thank you so much. It means a lot to have you all here today and hear your insights, expertise, experience. And we want to thank you for joining the show.
Yeah. I think our viewers, this is going to be of great value to them. I think it's going to help hopefully more than just share some words. Yeah. It will help inspire some continued action. But I think Kalie and I want to thank you on behalf of our viewers who are coming. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you've enjoyed it so far. I hope you've felt like it has been fruitful.
Yeah, and there's a lot more we could talk about as well. So we might have to do a part two,
maybe a follow up. If you guys are game for it,
So
been good. Yeah. Thank you.
Great seeing you all. Robin,
yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah. And I just want to say to all our viewers, thank you for watching, and we hope you continue to tune in to hear other great episodes and great topics. But, as we close out on this episode of Toll Talk, reflecting on Juneteenth, and I think we can walk away with some strong thoughts that, people matter, history matter, taking action matters. And these will all be the things that help us lead, build communities, and create opportunities for others. So, thanks again for this conversation. I hope it reflects a spirit of action, and that we hope you enjoy the show. So thanks for joining.